What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with 150 in bonus bets if you hit your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, the EuroBasket fan himself, the man with all the answers, Marc Stein. Marc, how you doing?
Adam Mares. It's been a while, man. How is the All-NBA squad?
Squad's doing well. Let's just slowly getting back into it. Like NBA players, you know, some guys coming back to the gym for a little check-in. That's kind of how it's been, man. We've been enjoying our offseason. How about you?
Well, you know how it is. After Labor Day is when you ramp it up. That's when everybody starts making their way back to the practice gym. The pickup games start. Camp is almost here. But yes, I mean, EuroBasket, we'll get to it. But yeah, I mean, I think this weekend we got 8 games to dig into. 8 bonus basketball games is never a bad thing.
It really isn't, and I'm excited for it. I enjoy EuroBasket. I enjoy European hoops. I just enjoy the game of basketball, but there's a lot of NBA players participating, and we've been talking about it, these pool play games, which means they don't mean nothing, but they don't mean everything. But starting tomorrow is the elimination round, basically the Sweet 16 of EuroBasket, so these games will get intense, and we're going to get into why both of us love them. It's a perfect day to have you on, because you love EuroBasket. You too love European hoops. And so we're going to go into that and talk about who our picks are and how we look at the weekend and different things like that. But we're going to start with the top NBA story, which is such a bizarre one, you know, in so many ways. And I'm going to let you kind of walk us through it, but I'll set the stage by saying this. A few days ago, Pablo Torre revealed on his podcast the findings of his investigation, which were that the Kawhi Leonard had received a large portion. At the time, it was $28 million from a company that had been invested by Steve Ballmer, and painted it as though it was very clear, or at least very suspicious, that Steve Ballmer had funneled this under-the-table money, a significant portion, over to Kawhi Leonard. So that's the stage to set. Why don't you walk me through, you know, this from your perspective and what you know about it at this moment?
I mean, look, it's an amazing compilation of reporting that Pablo has put together. I mean, he has more than 3,000 documents. He has a contract that's signed by Kawhi Leonard. This contract reveals an LLC that is Kawhi Leonard's LLC, and all these alleged violations, with a lot of reporting that has the whole league talking. I mean, you know, it is a staggering amount of information to digest. I would say it's unprecedented. You hear we've heard talk all week since the story dropped about, you know, remember Joe Smith, remember the Wolves, right. Remember the Wolves losing all those draft picks. This is so different from the Joe Smith situation. The Joe Smith situation, those situations happened before. And even post Joe Smith, they still happen, where a team will verbally tell a guy, we only have so much to offer you, sign with us now, and when you get your bird rights, we'll give you more. We would be naive to think that those conversations don't still happen. The reason the Wolves got in so much trouble, the Wolves put those deals in writing, and there was an agent breakup, and those contracts were discovered in writing, these promises to Joe Smith. And that's why the Wolves got hit so hard. But that was those were direct contract deals. What makes this so different, what Pablo Torre is reporting, what they are saying they have uncovered, is a separate sponsorship deal to pay Kawhi Leonard outside of his NBA contract, and not just pay him, but pay him handsomely. You said it. The numbers that Pablo Torre's report is alleging is an extra 28 million over 4 years. That's a lot. And that's something the league has to investigate this thoroughly and aggressively. And you know, look, sponsor deals for players, they're legal
Right.
under certain circumstances. And kind of the way that it's been explained to me is the deals have to be market value. If the Nuggets have if the Nuggets main sponsor wants to do a deal with Jokic and Jokic is amenable to it, as long as he is paid quote market value, that stays within the bounds of what the NBA CBA allows.
And real quick, hold on, because this did happen. I mean, Western Union was the patch sponsor for the Nuggets when the patch sponsors first arrived, and then you saw Jokic and all these Western Union commercials.
Yeah,
so these things happen.
That's it. That is in bounds, as long as, you know, where it would have gone out of bounds would be if we find out that Jokic was paid $7 million a year for those ads, and like you said, you've seen Jokic in
Well,
Western Union ads. A huge part of Pablo's report is that in his research and reporting, he couldn't find Kawhi Leonard doing anything for this company aspiration. So what was he getting the $7 million for? Now, on the flip side, Mark Cuban, who has been as an outspoken a defender of Steve Ballmer in this as anyone who has anything to do with the NBA, and of course, Mark Cuban is now the former majority owner of the Mavericks and is really just chiming in here as a league observer and someone who obviously knows what it's like to be in Ballmer's position just as an owner in the league. You know, Cuban has raised the question, how do we know Kawhi even got any of this money? And so that is going to have to be examined. But look, to me, the most interesting, you know, Steve Ballmer went on SportsCenter last night, sat down with Ramona Shelburne for 15 minutes. And, you know, we originally were planning to go on last night, and then we decided, you know what, with the NFL season opener and Ballmer going on SportsCenter, let's digest what Ballmer has to say, and let's do this in the morning. I'm not sure that we've learned a ton more from that interview. Again, the NBA is going to have to put this thing under a significant microscope. And to me, one of the most fascinating things here is the timing. There's a Board of Governors meeting next week in New York. Steve Ballmer is going to have to be in a room with all of his peers, the other 29 owners, and, you know, how they react to this, how mad some of them will be, how hard they push Adam Silver to dig into this. I think that's where this goes next.
Well, let me step back before we step forward, because I think part of what is intriguing or maybe even suspicious about this is back during Kawhi's free agency tour, it was a scandal that his representation, namely his Uncle Dennis, was asking for things like this. Hey, if you want Kawhi, we want a private plane, we want a house, we want these endorsement deals, we want all these different things, and it was illegal. And because I imagine is because he had those conversations with multiple teams, it got out that, hey, this is something that's going on. Their team is asking for things that are under the table and outside of it. So that was okay. That story kind of came and went, and now you get to this situation, and it just sounds like, well, that feels like a fulfillment of a promise that happened years ago.
So the league investigated it at the time, and the league said their investigation at the time, 2019, found no rules were broken. But the league did say at the time, if further evidence compels us to look at this again, we will look at this again. And that's obviously going to happen now. And like I said, I really think how the other teams react to this is going to, you know, drive it. And, you know, because Adam Silver ultimately has to answer to the other owners. And, you know, Steve Ballmer is already known as the richest owner in the NBA, as an owner who has resources that no one else has. You saw the building that they've built. The Intuit Dome is the fanciest building on the NBA map. you see the system that the NBA now operates in. Those aprons, I mean, how many times?
Right.
There's not many all NBA shows that I come on that we don't have to talk about the aprons. You know, the aprons have become a daily, it's a part of our daily vocabulary. That's a lot because of Steve Ballmer. And the NBA's newest CBA has all these team building restrictions for the first time because, in large part, because Steve Ballmer stands out as an owner who has the wherewithal to pay any just plain old luxury tax bill that would have landed on his desk. And so now teams can't just pay whatever they want in luxury tax. They get draft picks frozen, and they can't sign players via the buyout market, and the aprons have all these restrictions that make it harder to build your team. So much of this is tied to the incredible wealth that Steve Ballmer. This was an amazing comment on our DLS show the other day. Bobby Carella, our head of content and one of the stars of the All Mavs podcast, and we love to call him the Carella-strator because he's usually the X and O guy. But Bobby said on our show, he's like, the four of us are closer in wealth to Mark Cuban than Cuban
Right.
is to Ballmer. And I'm like, wait a minute, is that not a joke? Is that is that true? And that's, I mean, that, and that tells you how much money we're talking about that Steve Ballmer possesses. So, there might be some owners in that room who say, I don't know if we want you to dig into this too hard because who knows what team X, Y, or Z has done as well. But I have a feeling that there will be owners in that room who are like, we already can't compete with these guys, Adam. What are you going to do about this? How are you going to look into this? Now, I want to be clear though. The Clippers, multiple statements, Steve Ballmer's interview yesterday, the Clippers have adamantly denied they have done nothing wrong. They say they are an open book. They say they will welcome any investigation, and they say they can prove that Ballmer's investment in this company Aspiration had no connection to Kawhi Leonard, and they will have to prove that. And again, the timing is amazing because Board of Governors meeting means Steve Ballmer's got to go in a room with all his colleagues, but it also means Adam Silver's most likely going to do a press conference next week and have to take questions from the media. And look, there are a lot of things we can talk about in the NBA. Free agency, we didn't see a lot of activity. Is free agency dead? That's a question Adam Silver will surely get. We got some reports this week about tweaks to the All-Star game format. That's a question Adam Silver's going to get. But look, if there's 20 questions asked at this press conference, 15 are going to be about the Clippers. So we know that the answers will be very prepared and very polished. But I mean, this is a story. Again, chapeau to Pablo Torre when his podcast dropped, and he dropped it at 5:38 Eastern.
Yep.
On, I guess, Wednesday morning, but my phone has not stopped ringing about it. This is what everyone in the league wants to talk about because, again, the Joe Smith situation, yes, the penalty was massive that the Wolves faced, but that was the promise of a contract issue. What's going on with the Clippers is in a it's in a category unto itself.
Well, let me ask you that part here because you're right. Here's one thing, and one of my favorite follows on basketball Twitter is Nate Jones, who works in the business of the NBA.
Yes.
And he's been pretty adamant that, hey, nothing's going to come of this, no penalty, because it's so difficult to prove that this was a step one to step two to step three. We know that Ballmer invested $50 million. We know that Kawhi received at least 28, although there's reports that he actually received $48 million, which would be even more suspicious because that's an exact money comes in, money goes out.
Yep.
And that we know that Aspiration, the tree planting, eco-friendly company that was this flow through, likely just a fraudulent company, ended up getting bankrupting and sued for fraud. And that this company likely was just the middleman between that. But how do you prove it? They were a sponsor on the Clippers. And even though nothing was asked of Kawhi, which makes it seem egregious, like you didn't cover your own tracks and give yourself plausible deniability. But even though they didn't do that, how do you connect Clippers to Kawhi other than say, hey, we invested in a company, they invested in him. I just feel like that's impossible to prove, even though everybody will kind of look at it and know what it is.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. Nate Jones, who works on the agent side of the business and is involved in these kind of sponsored deals, he is a great follow on Twitter. Because look, this is my July launched me into my 33rd season, but like I don't remember covering a story like this. Like this is new terrain. Like you brought up the Western Union and the Jokic ads. That's like something that that side of the business doesn't get talked about. Obviously the Warriors, Rakuten is a huge sponsor of the Warriors, and various Warriors players have been in Rakuten ads for sure. HEB is a supermarket
Right.
chain in Texas. They've been doing
They got
stuff
their
with
money's
the
worth.
they've been doing stuff with the Spurs for decades. HEB commercials are like that's part of Spurs lore. So yes,
Yep.
there is a way to do this that stays within the bounds of the rules. The contracts and the language and all the documents that Pablo has unearthed certainly suggest that they've strayed past the line. But again, you said it. The league, the investigation, someone is going to have to prove that the Clippers were directing all this. Are there emails? Are there texts that show that the Clippers were joysticking this? And the Clippers have come out and adamantly said, we weren't, Steve Ballmer was on SportsCenter last night saying, I was conned. I invested in these guys. It had nothing to do with Kawhi. Someone is going to have to prove otherwise, or we're not going to see the mammoth monster penalties that people are anticipating.
Well, what's interesting is he came out and said, we can prove it, which almost puts the onus now on him, which I thought was almost a foolish language, because usually it's you have to prove it of me. But he's like, we can prove it of you. The quote from the Clippers, like, it's provably false, which to me was just a weird way to approach it. But real quick, and actually I'll talk about his interview last night, because he had to go out there and he's in a pickle, right? He's in a tight spot. I thought his method of defense last night was almost to make himself look weak and feeble. He said, I got frauded. I got defrauded. I don't know what's going on. I don't have any answers. Somebody took advantage of me. And I just sit there and I go, you're known as a businessman. This is how you became one of the richest people in the world. And you're sitting here saying you have no answers to anything. What did you make? That's how I interpreted the thing. It almost was shameful, in my opinion, him having to go out and do that, or him taking that approach. But I don't know what other approach he had to take.
No, because I think you knew that there would be some sort of sit down interview somewhere with, there's no running from a story like this. But again, the show I want to see is the one we can't see. I want to know what happens. I want to know what happens in that board of governors meeting when Steve Ballmer is in a room of his peers and every team has a representative in there, because the questions are going to be flying. And, again, I'm probably getting my hopes up with the press conference. I did the same thing in my EuroBasket preview. I said, one of the things to watch about EuroBasket, Giannis is going to have to do media because he's playing for Greece. And are the Bucks going to come up? Is his future going to come up? And of course, it really hasn't. It came up because his brother Thanasis Antetokounmpo signed a new contract. So I'm probably getting my hopes up that the press conference is going to reveal a ton. But again, the timing is fascinating. We got Hall of Fame weekend this weekend, but then next weekend, all 30 teams will have an owner an owner's rep in that room. 30 teams are going to be in a room with Adam Silver. Yeah. And I would love to know what those conversations are like.
I'm going to put you in a tight spot, and maybe you don't, maybe you have an answer for this, maybe you don't. When somebody gets caught cheating on, maybe it's steroids or maybe it's something else, and even if the allegations go away, it sort of taints everybody, because then you say, well, how common is it? Everybody, it feels now that this is out there, it feels like everybody's doing it. When I see a story like this, I just think, this has to be how teams operate. Maybe not every single one, and certainly not to the degree, because 50, $48 million, 28, whatever the number ends up being, that's an insane amount of money to try to funnel under the table. But I have to imagine there are owners who operate like this. And this is the fallout it'll have with me. And I'm thinking Adam Silver has to be thinking is players just keep losing, or fans keep losing a little bit of trust in the integrity of the league. And that to me is the greatest fallout.
No, it's a great, I mean, it's a great point. And, that's one of the, just think about, I mean, again, to reference our DLS Mavs show, we had Cuban on last week and he said, I'm going to go to my grave saying the '06 finals was rigged. And, Dwayne Wade clapped back at him. And then yesterday we had Dirk Nowitzki on. And so, of course, we asked Dirk, and Dirk gave a tremendous answer. Dirk's like, we won the first 2 games. We had a huge lead in game 3. We didn't take care of business. And, Dirk put the onus on the Mavericks. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because, like you said, just the talk of rigging, games are rigged. We've been hearing that since the 90s, and it doesn't go away no matter how many times it gets disproven. And like you and the league is always, I think, asking itself internally, like, how do we combat these perceptions? So yeah, I mean, if no penalties are found, if the Clippers can, get out of this,
it doesn't matter if they're found. I don't think it matters if there's penalties that are found or anything. I think
it's going to be. And look, it's realistically, it's been talked about since 2019 because of all those reports that happened at the time that you referenced earlier. So yeah, I mean, this
is bigger though. This is bigger. And here's my point. Mike. We have Clutch now that's owned in part by a player and operated and CAA, and they have such influence that you watch things and say, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? It's like, that's not the real story. The real story is behind the scenes and the power and the leverage that is used by these agencies and by the league's most influential figures. And then you have things like the player agency and how they're doing this coach gets fired for what reason? When you get something like this, you think, does anything happen the way we think anymore? Or is everything just power plays behind the scenes and money offered under the table, and we just sit back and watch and pretend that it wasn't those things? That's what I think the league, whether they see it already or not, that's the subconscious feeling I think fans have about the league, is that everything happens under the table and behind closed doors.
And now I wish we could transport you to the press conference next week, because I love the way you said it. And that's like, because all the questions are going to be about details in the case.
Right.
And the league's not going to answer those. We're not going to get I mean, they just announced that they're launching an investigation. So we're going to want all these details and what's going to happen and what are the penalties. We're not going to get all that next week. But the question you asked is a tremendous one. And I hope it's asked in that room, that perception-wise, how does the league combat the perception that no matter what this investigation finds and no matter where the penalties go, if the outside world believes this story and believes it to be true, you're right, it causes huge damage. Even if it's proven to be completely, no, the Clippers and Ballmer had nothing to do with it, but in a lot of ways, you're right. The damage is done in a lot of ways.
And I think that's the perception that the league is going to have to fight against. And if I'm being honest, and I'm critical of Adam Silver, I'm very critical of him. I think it's the defining trait of his tenure so far, is that there's these little pieces of trust or that just come to light or break down in a way that makes you think, we love the game, but it feels like we're watching the shell of the league. We're not seeing the whole thing. We're just seeing the shell of it. And all this stuff happens behind the surface, below the surface, and behind closed doors. And unfortunately,
well, I guess, what one counter to that, though, I would say, like, Adam Silver was seen as so much stricter as a commissioner. And if David Stern was still here, he would drop the hammer. And okay, the hammer was dropped on the Wolves. They were docked 5 first-round picks. Both Glenn Taylor and Kevin McHale were suspended. But if you remember, it actually got reduced to 3 first-round picks. And Glenn Taylor still ended up as in charge of the Board of Governors after that suspension.
That's
So,
a death
like,
penalty still, though. I mean, and we see this in college sports when a team gets a death penalty, even if it's only a 5 years, like, oh, for 5 years, it takes 20 to rebuild a program. The Timberwolves obviously went through their difficulties in the 2000s. So to me, that's still a hammer. It's just the hammer got reduced a little bit mid-swing.
no, yeah, I mean, it was I mean, the draft picks is a hammer, no question. But just, I think I just think it's oft forgotten that Glenn Taylor, post suspension, still ended up in a huge position of prominence on the board of governors. So, I mean,
Last one for you on this topic. I find it fascinating. We went long on this topic because I just find it so interesting. But, Ballmer, how is he viewed amongst other owners? Obviously as the most powerful one because of all the money, but he is new. He is a Maverick. Is he liked, hated, indifferent? And does this change it at all?
that's a great question, and I don't know that I have a great answer for you. And yeah, I mean, that is at the heart of this, because look, I think he's been in great standing with the league because, look at the building he built. The next All-Star game in February is at Intuit Dome. That's, I think that's a reflection of what, the league thinks of the building. And, Steve Ballmer is obviously an owner they want in the league. But yeah, how his peer, there are teams who will be in that room next week saying, we can't compete with this guy as it is. And, we're to believe that the Clippers had nothing to do with this supposed extra 28 million. And again, these are all allegations. It's, is it what actually happened? How much money was actually paid out? I mean, there's so many variables we don't know. But yeah, I think it's a great question that I probably don't have a firm answer for you. And how his peers and how these other teams react, it's a big part of this.
Well, here's the state of the NBA is you have new ownership groups coming in with so much money that you can't penalize them by money. They said it literally doesn't matter. So you have to create second aprons and all these complex things to try to limit it. And okay, it's led to an era of parity that I think is at least interesting to see where it goes. But then you have an ecosystem where through player empowerment and agencies popping up and individual representation that now is designed to take advantage of that endless money that now has to go into the darkness. It's a very weird ecosystem. And it feels, I think a lot of people look at this and say it's a story that comes and goes. And I say, I don't know. It feels like an ecosystem that's starting to form that naturally lends itself to these types of dynamics and situations. But maybe it doesn't. We'll have to wait and find out. Let's take a break. On the other side, we'll get to more happy things like EuroBasket, one of our favorite tournaments. We'll talk about that on the other side. Tell you guys about FanDuel. It's the best place to find all your favorite player props, and now you can make the smarter play with new performance trends. Want to see if a guy's been hitting the over consistently? Or maybe he's been flirting with a potential triple-double. Get the latest stats right inside the app and see who's heating up. And once the game starts, that's when things get interesting. You can combine live prop bets into same-game parlays for a chance to win big. If you don't already have FanDuel, it's not too late to get in on the action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. You know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite pair of sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car or at a gas station 3 states away? Well, I've been there too. And I've even broken mine, sat on them, put them in a little container in the middle of my car, the little console, and then stacked things on top of it till they cracked. But then I found Shady Rays, and it changed the game because these sunglasses are made for real life and for people like me who are always forgetting things. They're seriously good looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. But here's the wild part. If you lose or break them at any point and for any reason, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you brand new pair. No guilt trip, No questions asked, just replacements. Whatever it was that you broke, they'll send you a new pair. So now I actually wear my sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever. I lose them on purpose if I have to. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35 for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, back here on the All NBA show, segment 2 with my guy Marc Stein, and now we're going to talk about better things, nicer things, like EuroBasket. You and I both get into this. We get into the European game and we get into this competition, and I like this one in particular because it's teams and players representing their nation with pride and with a real opportunity to win the entire thing. There's no Team USA. It is the continent of Europe coming together and saying this is going to be the tournament. So I love it. You've been following it longer than I have, though. When did you get into it, and what do you like about it?
Well, I mean, I was very lucky that, international basketball was really my introduction. It was kind of my pathway just to even get on this beat. So, I mean, literally the first NBA story I ever wrote was, a Lakers
Vlade?
first round draft pick named Vlade Divac in 1989. So, I mean, EuroBasket, it's very interesting the way the competition has evolved, because the truth is now, we just had AmeriCup. We just had AfroBasket. We have EuroBasket right now. There's also the corresponding competition in Asia. The truth is this competition doesn't really do anything for you in terms of qualifying for the World Cup or the Olympics.
Right.
So in AmeriCup, what happens? The United States sends a team of G Leaguers. They lose in group play to Uruguay. They lose the semifinals to Brazil. And the United States has to settle for a bronze, and nobody even pays it. I mean, I don't even know if anybody in our chat paid attention to that competition, except actually Charlie Saturday's in there. So I know Charlie Saturday paid attention to that competition. But like, there's no reason to watch AmeriCup. AfroBasket, huge tournament for all these African nations, but there were only 2 NBA players in AfroBasket. Then there's EuroBasket, and all the guys play, even though there's nothing on the line really. Like winning EuroBasket, it's a pride thing.
Yeah,
but still,
Mark, there's a lot of countries, and I can tell you for Serbia, EuroBasket championships make up some of their proudest moments. They were some of their most
That's what I'm saying. We're in agreement. Like it's just like, it's amazing how much they care about this. Luka Doncic, he has the weakest team around him that he's ever had on the senior level with Slovenia. And like, he had the injury scare, and I'm sure Lakers fans are like, Luka, just take the summer off. Don't play. And what's happened? Luka Doncic is playing. Slovenia went 3-2 in group play. Again, he doesn't have Chonchar, your guy, friend of the pod. No Chonchar, no Josh Nebo. So Slovenia's 2 most accomplished players, not named Luka Doncic, can't even play. And Luka Doncic has Slovenia in the final 16 against Italy with a chance to win. Luka has been playing out of this world, and it is all for pride. And because winning EuroBasket in 2017 is arguably Slovenia's greatest sporting achievement ever. They have a Tour de France champion and a Stanley Cup champion, but like, what that title means, Slovenia beating Serbia to win EuroBasket in 2017. I mean, that is, I can't put it into words. If you ask Slovenians how much that thing means, I mean, they will tell you that it is massive. So yeah, I mean, look, everybody's playing. All the best European players are playing, apart from, France doesn't have Wemby and Gobert and Fournier, but pretty much everybody else has their main guys. And it's like you said, we get to the knockouts now, and gotta watch it.
So let's get into the knockouts. The games have been great, by the way. I love the basketball. I love the style of play, and it feels to me more like March Madness, where there's just an intensity to them. The games go fast. There's almost no timeouts. There's no TV timeouts, media timeouts. So the game moves. It's fast-paced. It's a shortened game, so everybody's sprinting, running hard. But let's get into it, because I think people should get into it. This weekend, the knockout round, there's only 4 rounds left. So if you're thinking of wanting to watch some hoops, this is a terrific weekend for it. We'll start with Turkey versus Sweden. Turkey upset Serbia the other day in a game in which Alperen Şengün completely outplayed Nikola Jokic head to head. And I think Turkey is one of two teams that should be considered favorites right now to win this entire tournament. Şengün looks incredible. Like, he's leveling up. You got Cedi Osman, Furkan Korkmaz, and the star of the show, really, Shane Larkin, who is the European Steph Curry. They are a complete team, plays a great brand of basketball, and I think that they are poised to make it to the final.
Shout out James Clark for getting the whole bracket up on the screen. Our friends, that's from our friends at Basket News. And look, it's wise that you started with Turkey, because that bracket. So on the other side of the bracket, Germany, Serbia, France, who you would recognize as the three best teams in this tournament, they're all on the other side of the bracket, as is Slovenia, with Luka playing out of his mind. All of those teams are on the other side of the bracket. So it's not just Turkey against Sweden in the round of 16, and Sweden's only NBA player is Pelle Larsson. So the way Turkey is playing, one of the two unbeatens in this tournament to this point, you have to think Turkey is going to win that game. But it's not, I mean, Turkey is the favorite to come out of that side of the bracket. Yep. Now, you've got Greece there with Giannis playing very well. The game at the top of that bracket on the left side, Lithuania and Latvia, the fiercest of rivals playing in Latvia. That game is going to be, that atmosphere is going to be intense. And I was actually going to ask you, be honest with us, are you watching more? Have you been watching Lithuania more because you want to scout Valanciunas, or are you watching more Serbia to see your guy Jokic?
I'm watching both, man. I'm locked in for both of the reasons you just mentioned. But Lithuania, I mean, this is how deep I get into it when I start following them. I watched the injury to Rokas Jokubaitis, who was really fun to watch. I didn't really know much about him. Just signed a deal with Bayern Munich, big deal for that team, kind of like their signature free agency move. He was really nice, could create, could shoot, could score, could do a little bit of everything, and he goes out with an ACL injury. So that injury levels the playing field between Lithuania and Latvia, in my opinion. Neither of them are contenders for the title, for the gold in this tournament, but both of them pretty flawed, and that'll be a great game.
Yeah, we've seen some tough injuries, and that's obviously the terrible part of this, because, you know, look, the NBA fans, you live in constant fear that someone from your team is going to get hurt. My take on it has always been, listen, there's 100+ international players in the NBA every season. That's a huge amount. A huge portion of the league it's players born outside the United States. If they want to play for their national teams, we can't just take all these players into the NBA and say, you're not allowed to play for your national team anymore. But it is the age-old unanswerable question. There is, Serbia. Serbia's lost Bogdan Bogdanovic, their captain.
Yeah.
And, the Clippers, Bogdanovic is under contract to the Clippers. And it's now the Clippers who have, they're the ones who have to bear the brunt of this hamstring injury. And it's a tough one. And yeah, you're right. I mean, Jokubaitis is a big loss for Lithuania. And I still think they're probably favored in that game. But again, Latvia is at home. They've got both Porzingis
that crowd's
and Bertans
going to be crazy.
It is, yes, it is going to be. I mean, again, that is the fiercest of rivals. That is as fierce a rivalry as any in Europe. And so for that game to be in Latvia will be wild.
I think Turkey comes out of that side of the bracket, or that quadrant of the bracket. I think Greece has a great chance with Giannis. I mean, this is a little bit of a weaker tournament. Israel has Deni Avdija, who I love and I think is a great player, but Greece, to me, can make it to the semifinals, which is when you have a guy like Giannis, that's what you want. Just put yourself in the medal rounds and see what happens. So I think that side of the bracket is going to play out like that. I think Germany is by far, or I shouldn't say by far, I think they are the best team in this tournament. I think Turkey is close, but Germany is complete. They have a little bit of everything. They know who they are. They have continuity. And yet, I think they got the toughest route to the finals, because they have Portugal, which they should be able to get through. Italy and Slovenia. Slovenia obviously has Luka Doncic, not a whole lot else. Italy very well coached, and they have some players. Fontecchio. They have guys that know how to play. So Germany, to me, kind of got a tough deal, and that they're going to have to fight just to get out of their quadrant.
Yeah, just because that whole side of the draw is ridiculously tough. I obviously am not at EuroBasket, but I did go to Slovenia in August and I saw one of the warm-up games. I saw Germany playing in Slovenia. And yeah, I mean, their team is stacked. Dennis Schroeder, he's one of those players, he's FIBA Dennis. You got Dennis Schroeder, Bogdan Bogdanovic. There are certain players who they go to another starry level playing for their
Oh
national
yeah,
team, and Dennis Schroeder is definitely on that list. We saw him at the 2023 World Cup lead
it's
Germany
yeah.
to the World Cup gold. And look, Portugal's been a great story. Nemias Queta from the Celtics has had a tremendous tournament. He came right out of the gates with, I think it was 23 and 18. And the Celtics and Celtics fans are seeing a side of Queta that they don't normally get to see. But yeah, I think Slovenia beats Italy. Again, Slovenia's won its last 3 games. They also played Poland and France really close. Poland was at home. Poland doesn't have Sohan from the Spurs, but Poland had home court advantage. France, even without Wemby and Gobert and Fournier and Nicolas Batum is now retired from international play, but France still has a really strong team. Slovenia was in both of those games and might have stolen at least one of them. So Luka is carrying Slovenia. They are playing ridiculously well for how limited that roster is. So I think it's going to be Germany, Slovenia in the quarters. And then again, you look at the bottom of the draw and Serbia, Finland. We're going to get
That's
Jokic
the game
with
of the
a
weekend.
showdown against Markkanen. And
Markkanen, me and Legs have been raving about this as we're watching these games. Markkanen is unbelievable in this tournament. He shoots it every time he gets it, because he has to, and he's very good at it. He just scores and puts up insane points.
These are 40-minute games. He had 48 and 43 or something like that in the warm-up games. And then he's got a 40-point game in this tournament. And these
I'm telling you, people got to watch, man. People got to watch it. It's fun.
There have been a ton of high-scoring games. Again, these are 40-minute games, and guys are making, Fontecchio had a 39-point game. Luka's gone for 39, 37. I've lost track. Jokic had a 39-point game. Jordan Lloyd, he had like 7 threes and 30-something in the first game. So we've seen some crazy offensive performance. And look, I know it's NFL opening weekend. I understand people on Sunday are going to be watching the NFL, but there are 4 games on Saturday, 4 games on Sunday, relatively early enough Eastern time that you can watch these games without messing with your college football or your NFL. And yeah, if you are a basketball fan, these are 2-hour games. Look at that. Clark's got the schedule even.
Yeah.
These are 2-hour games, and if you are an NBA junkie who is missing training camp because we're still a ways, we still got to wait to the end of the month. There's a lot to see here.
Yeah, it's going to be phenomenal here. I think if I pick, you can bring the bracket back up there if you don't mind, James. I'm gonna go with Serbia versus Germany on that side of the bracket. I'm gonna go with Greece versus Turkey on that side. And I think my final, I'm going to say Germany over Turkey. I think that's how this plays out. Serbia was poised to win this one, but they have just been hit with the injury bug, including Bogdan Bogdanovic, who was irreplaceable to them as their scoring guard. So I'm going to go Germany over Turkey. Do you want to make a prediction?
Well, I would just say this, Jokic, obviously, whose resume, 3 MVPs in the NBA, a championship. But, with the national team, they finished 9th in the last EuroBasket, which is, how could it, just insane. So they have not won EuroBasket with Jokic. I don't purport to know Jokic as well as you do, but I have to think he badly would love to win one of these. And, can they win now without Bogdanovic? They still have a really deep team. Coming into the tournament, Serbia was seen as an overwhelming favorite because their roster is just, I think, 10 of the 12 guys on Serbia's roster have either played in the NBA, used to play in the NBA, or at least the player was drafted by an NBA team. So they have a lights out roster. I still think Serbia is going to be a very tough out. And you mentioned Greece on the other side. Greece is about 20 years removed from winning EuroBasket, but with Giannis there, they have not had the kind of success they had when Spanoulis, their coach, was playing for Greece. The old Greece was just in the Spanoulis era, it was a much more well-rounded team. They didn't have a star of Giannis's stature. Giannis is obviously a monster in this competition, but you got to have shooting around him because these teams just pack the paint and do that. So far to this point, the shooters that Greece have, they've been making shots and they've looked good. Giannis has also skipped a couple games.
Yeah.
He only played 3 of the 5 group games, but I think we're going to see him the rest of the way now. And Greece feels, like you said, that Greece is on the more favorable side of the bracket and thinks they have a chance to get to the title game. And look, we see those 16 teams, and Spain's not on there. Spain has been eliminated. Spain has won 4 of the last 6 EuroBaskets, and
they lost their guard.
But it blows my mind. One of the things, a question I would love to answer, and I don't know how to get. Maybe I need to ask Pablo Torre for some help here. Like, Argentina won the Olympics in 2004. Spain has won 4 of the last 6 EuroBaskets and has been the United States' closest competitor at multiple Olympics. Why didn't younger generations in those countries, like, you would have thought so many more kids would, those are soccer countries, don't get me wrong, but you would have thought all those basketball successes would have led so many more kids to play basketball and that those nations would continue to be powerhouses. Spain only had 1 NBA player on its roster, Santi Aldama from the Grizzlies, and Spain doesn't even make the knockouts. I mean, that right there is a huge headline in Europe.
Hit that outro music for us, James. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us on this Friday, getting us ready for EuroBasket, and of course, breaking down this Kawhi Leonard story, which I enjoyed that conversation very much. Mark, that was great stuff, man. That was really good. It was good to see you too.
Good to be back, my friend. Good. We will do it again soon. We're basically back. We're back.
We're locked in. Yeah, we're locked into EuroBasket, which is going to carry us all the way through next week and into the weekend. And then after that, it's just a short hop to Media Day. Appreciate everybody watching. Make sure you're subscribed. We will be back next week breaking down all of the rounds of EuroBasket, me and Tim Legler. So make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. And we'll see you then.
Y'all silly like the mayor.